Crowd applause as King Charles III pays tribute on Remembrance Sunday. King Charles, royal family. People arrived early, standing along the streets near the cenotaph. Some came alone, others with family members. Many held small red flowers in their hands. Faces were calm, serious, and full of thought. This was Remembrance Sunday, a day that meant a great deal to the nation. The sky was soft and gray, matching the mood of the crowd. There was no rush, no excitement like at a festival. Instead, there was respect. Every person standing there knew they were part of something bigger than themselves. They had come to remember those who had served their country and never returned. For some in the crowd, this day was deeply personal. They thought of grandparents, parents, or relatives whose stories were passed down through generations. As the time for the ceremony came closer, attention slowly turned toward the arrival of King Charles III. This moment held special meaning. It was one of the most important public duties he would perform as monarch. Many people quietly watched, wanting to understand what kind of king he would be during moments that demanded dignity and care. He was not just representing himself, but the crown, the nation, and a long line of history. King Charles III arrived with calm steps. He did not rush. His posture was steady, and his expression was thoughtful. This was not a moment for smiles or grand gestures. It was a moment for reflection. He knew the eyes of the country were upon him, but more importantly, he knew he was standing on ground filled with memory. Generations of leaders before him had stood in the same place, honoring the same values. The silence around the cenotaph felt powerful. Even the crowd seemed to breathe more quietly. The sound of traffic faded into the distance. Birds flying above felt like part of the stillness rather than a distraction. People stood shoulder to shoulder, strangers united by shared respect. Some closed their eyes while others stared ahead, lost in their thoughts. For King Charles III, this day carried personal weight. He had grown up watching Remembrance Sunday ceremonies, first as a young boy, then as a prince standing beside his mother. Those memories shaped his understanding of duty. Now, standing as king, he felt the responsibility more deeply than ever. This was not about tradition alone. It was about honoring real people, real lives, and real sacrifices. The uniform he wore was neat and formal, reflecting the seriousness of the occasion. Every detail mattered not for show but for respect. His movements were measured, showing care and awareness. He was fully present in the moment. The crowd noticed this. They saw a man who understood the importance of the day, not someone simply fulfilling an obligation. Around him, members of the royal family and officials stood in quiet unity. Each person played a role, but the focus remained on remembrance, not status. The ceremony belonged to the people and to the memory of those being honored. This shared focus created a strong sense of togetherness. As the ceremony began, a deep stillness settled over the area. It felt as if time itself paused. In that silence, thoughts grew louder. People remembered stories they had heard, names written in old letters, and photographs kept in drawers. The weight of history was present, but so was gratitude. Gratitude for peace, for freedom, and for the sacrifices that made them possible. King Charles III stood firmly, his gaze steady. He was aware that his actions would speak louder than words. In moments like this, silence carried meaning. His presence alone sent a message of respect and commitment. This was a test of leadership not through speech, but through behavior. The public felt a connection to the moment. Many had wondered how the new king would carry himself during such important traditions. This morning began to answer that question. He showed patience, sincerity, and deep respect. These qualities mattered greatly to the people watching, both in person and from their homes. As the ceremony continued, the sense of shared memory grew stronger. This was not just about the past, it was about carrying lessons forward. The king understood this. He knew that remembrance was not meant to stay in one day, but to live on through values like service, unity, and responsibility. The quiet strength of the moment set the tone for everything that would follow. Without saying a word, King Charles III showed that he respected the weight of history he had inherited. The crowd sensed this and responded with silent approval. This was only the beginning, but it was a powerful start. The morning air felt heavy yet meaningful. It reminded everyone present why Remembrance Sunday mattered. It was a day to pause, to think, and to honor. As King Charles III stood before the cenotaph, the nation watched not just a king, but a man stepping fully into his role, ready to uphold a tradition that connects past, present, and future. This first part of the day did not rely on drama or loud moments. Its strength came from stillness, respect, and shared understanding. It laid the foundation for a ceremony that would soon touch the hearts of many and become a memorable moment in the early days of King Charles III's reign. As the ceremony moved forward, the focus slowly shifted toward King Charles III. The crowd remained quiet, but their attention was strong and steady. Every small movement mattered now. This was the moment when the king would step fully into his role, not just as a symbol, but as a leader honoring a shared memory. People watched closely, not with judgment but with hope and curiosity. King Charles III took a careful step forward. His pace was calm and unhurried, showing respect for the seriousness of the occasion. The sound of his footsteps felt softer than usual, almost absorbed by the silence around him. His face showed deep focus. It was clear that his thoughts were not on cameras or public attention, but on the meaning of the moment. This was a duty he did not take lightly. As he moved closer to the cenotaph, memories from his past seemed to travel with him. Years of standing behind his mother during similar ceremonies had prepared him for this day. Back then, he had watched quietly, learning through observation. Now he was no longer standing behind anyone. He was leading. That change carried weight, and he felt it with every step. The crowd noticed how steady he looked. There was no sign of hesitation. His posture was upright, his expression serious yet gentle. People could sense that this was not an act. It was genuine. Many in the audience felt reassured by his calm presence. It reminded them that tradition was being carried forward with care. Around him, the atmosphere remained deeply respectful. No one spoke. No one moved unnecessarily. Even small sounds felt out of place. This silence was not empty. It was full of meaning. It allowed people to reflect, to remember, and to feel connected to something larger than themselves. King Charles III reached his place and paused. In that pause, a quiet message was sent. He was not rushing through the ceremony. He was allowing the moment to breathe. This simple act showed patience and understanding. It showed that he respected not only the event, but the people it honored. For many watching, this was an important test. They wanted to see how the new king would carry himself during one of the nation's most emotional traditions. His calm and respectful manner answered that question clearly. He was not trying to change the ceremony or make it about himself. He was honoring it as it had always been meant to be honored. The public could feel the seriousness in his presence. His eyes reflected thoughtfulness. He stood still, fully focused. This was a moment where words were not needed. His actions spoke clearly. They showed respect, humility, and a deep sense of duty. As the ceremony continued, the shared sense of remembrance grew stronger. People in the crowd thought about loved ones who had served. Some remembered stories told at family tables. Others remembered names written in old notebooks or engraved on memorials. These thoughts brought quiet emotion, but also pride. King Charles III understood this shared emotion. He knew that Remembrance Sunday belonged to the people. It was not about the royal family alone. It was about every family that carried memories of service and sacrifice. His role was to stand with them, not above them. The way he held himself reflected that understanding. There was no display of power, only presence. He stood as a representative of unity. This made the moment feel personal, even though it was happening on a national stage. People watching from their homes could feel that connection as well. The ceremony continued with careful order. Each step followed tradition, but nothing felt distant or cold. Instead, it felt meaningful. The king's calm leadership helped maintain this feeling. He was setting an example through quiet strength. Time seemed to move slowly, but not in a boring way. It moved slowly because every second mattered. Every pause allowed space for thought. This pace helped the audience stay engaged, not through excitement, but through emotional connection. King Charles III remained focused throughout. He did not look around or shift his attention. He stayed present. This showed respect not only for the ceremony, but for the memories being honored. It showed that he understood the importance of giving full attention to moments like this. The crowd responded with deep silence. This silence was a form of respect and agreement. It showed that people recognized the care the king was taking. They felt included in the moment, not separated from it. For many, this part of the ceremony created a sense of reassurance. It showed that the transition to a new monarch had not weakened tradition. Instead, it showed that tradition was being carried forward with sincerity and understanding. As the king stood there, people felt a sense of continuity. The past, present, and future felt connected. This connection brought comfort. It reminded the nation that remembrance would continue, guided by respect and shared values. The atmosphere remained steady and thoughtful. No one seemed restless. Even those who had stood for a long time remained focused. The ceremony held their attention naturally, without needing dramatic moments. King Charles III's presence helped create this focus. His calm energy influenced the space around him. It encouraged reflection and unity. This was leadership shown through example rather than words. As this part of the ceremony came to a close, the sense of meaning grew deeper. People felt that they were witnessing an important moment, not just in the ceremony, but in the early chapter of a new reign. This was not about making history in a loud way. It was about honoring history quietly and respectfully. King Charles III showed that he understood this balance. His actions strengthened the trust between the monarch and the people. The ceremony continued forward, guided by tradition and respect. The king had stepped into his role with calm confidence. This moment reassured the nation that remembrance remained at the heart of leadership. This part of the story was built on stillness, focus, and shared understanding. It kept the audience engaged by touching emotions and values that mattered deeply. It prepared everyone for what was yet to come, while honoring everything that had come before. As the ceremony reached its most meaningful moment, the air felt even heavier with emotion. Everyone present understood that this was the heart of Remembrance Sunday. King Charles III prepared to offer his tribute, a moment that carried deep meaning not only for him, but for the entire nation. The crowd stood still, fully aware that what was about to happen would be remembered for years to come. The king stepped forward with steady focus. His movements were slow and careful, showing respect for the significance of the act. In his hands he carried the wreath, a simple symbol filled with deep meaning. It represented gratitude, memory, and honor. As he approached the memorial, the silence around him grew stronger. It felt as if even the wind had paused. In that quiet space, many people felt their emotions rise. Some lowered their heads. Others fixed their eyes on the scene, not wanting to miss a single moment. For some, memories of loved ones returned clearly. Faces, voices, and stories filled their minds. This was why they had come. This was why the day mattered. King Charles III placed the wreath with great care. There was no rush, no unnecessary movement. Every action felt thoughtful and deliberate. When the wreath was set in place, he stood still for a moment. That pause spoke louder than words. It showed reflection, respect, and a deep understanding of loss and sacrifice. His expression revealed quiet emotion. It was clear that this was not just a public duty for him. It was personal. He had grown up hearing stories of service and duty. He had seen the impact of remembrance on his family and on the nation. Now, standing there as king, those memories felt closer than ever. The silence continued, and it felt powerful rather than uncomfortable. It allowed space for thought and feeling. People in the crowd used this moment to remember names, faces, and moments from the past. Some thought of courage, others thought of loss. Many felt a mix of pride and sadness. King Charles III remained still, his head slightly lowered. This posture showed humility and respect. It reminded everyone that remembrance is not about rank or position. It is about honoring those who gave everything. In that moment, the king stood as one among many, united by shared memory. The connection between the monarch and the people felt strong. There was no barrier, no distance. Even though he stood at the center of the ceremony, his actions made the moment feel shared. People watching from a distance and those watching on screens at home felt included. As the moment continued, the emotional weight deepened. This was not a loud or dramatic scene, but it was deeply moving. The simplicity of the act made it powerful. There were no speeches, no music at that exact moment, just silence, respect, and remembrance. The king's tribute reflected the values he wished to uphold. It showed care, sincerity, and commitment. It reassured the public that he understood the role he now held. He was not just carrying a title, but a responsibility to honor the past while guiding the future. Around him, the ceremony continued smoothly, guided by tradition. Each step followed the order that had been followed for generations. This sense of continuity brought comfort. It reminded people that even as times change, some values remain strong. The crowd remained fully engaged. No one seemed distracted. The moment held their attention naturally. It did not rely on excitement or spectacle. Instead, it touched something deeper. It reminded people why remembrance matters and why it must never be forgotten. For King Charles III, this tribute was a defining moment. It showed how he would approach his duties as monarch, with care, with respect, with understanding. He did not try to make the moment his own. He allowed it to belong to the memory of those being honored. As he stepped back after placing the wreath, there was a sense of completion, but also continuation. The act was finished, but the meaning would remain. The king returned to his place quietly, maintaining the calm and respectful tone of the ceremony. People in the crowd felt moved. Some felt a sense of peace. Others felt emotion rise in their hearts, but most felt gratitude. Gratitude for those remembered and gratitude for a ceremony that honored them with dignity. This part of the ceremony strengthened the bond between the king and the nation. It showed that leadership could be shown through quiet moments, not just through words. It showed that respect and sincerity could speak louder than speeches. The atmosphere remained thoughtful as the ceremony continued. The tribute had set a strong emotional tone. It reminded everyone present of the importance of unity, memory, and respect. These were values that connected generations. King Charles III stood calmly, his role in the tribute complete. He remained focused, aware that the ceremony was not about one moment alone, but about the message it carried. A message of remembrance, gratitude, and shared responsibility. The crowd continued to stand in silence, honoring the moment. This silence felt like a promise to remember, a promise to pass these stories on, a promise to respect the sacrifices that shaped the present. As time moved forward, the memory of the tribute stayed strong. It was clear that this moment would be remembered as one of quiet strength and sincere leadership. It showed the nation that remembrance remained at the heart of its values. This part of the story did not rely on action or dialogue. Its power came from stillness and meaning. It kept the audience engaged by touching emotions that were real and shared by many. The tribute offered by King Charles III became a symbol of continuity and respect. It showed that while roles may change, the duty to remember remains constant. As the ceremony moved toward its next stage, the impact of this moment lingered. People carried it with them in their thoughts and hearts. It was a reminder of why they had gathered and why the day mattered so deeply. This moment stood as a quiet promise from the king to the people, a promise to honor the past with dignity and to carry its lessons forward. It was a promise made not with words but with presence, care, and sincere respect. After the tribute was completed, the ceremony slowly moved toward its closing moments. The silence that followed was deep and meaningful. People remained still, holding on to the emotion they felt. It was as if everyone needed a little more time to process what they had just witnessed. The air felt full, not empty. Something important had just happened, and no one wanted to rush past it. King Charles III returned to his place with the same calm steps. His face remained thoughtful and his posture steady. He did not look for attention. He stood quietly, allowing the moment to settle. The tribute had been simple, yet powerful. It had touched people in a way that words could not. The crowd remained silent for a few more seconds. These seconds felt longer than usual but not uncomfortable. They felt necessary. People were reflecting, remembering, and feeling connected to one another. Strangers stood side by side, sharing the same thoughts and emotions without speaking. Then, something unexpected happened. From somewhere within the crowd, a gentle sound broke the silence. It was the sound of applause. At first, it was soft and unsure, as if people were checking whether it was appropriate. A few hands came together slowly. The sound was respectful, not loud or sudden. The applause did not stop. Instead, it grew. More people joined in, and soon the sound spread through the crowd. It was not a celebration. It was not excitement. It was a sign of respect and appreciation. The applause carried emotion, gratitude, and support. It was a natural response, not planned or forced. King Charles III did not react immediately. He remained still, maintaining the dignity of the moment. But it was clear that the applause had meaning. It was directed not only at him, but at what he represented in that moment. It was a response to the care, respect, and sincerity he had shown. The crowd's applause felt like a shared message. It said thank you. It said we see you. It said we trust you. Many people felt that this was more than applause for a ceremony. It was a sign of connection between the king and the people. Some in the crowd felt emotion rise in their hearts. For many, this was the first time they felt such a strong sense of unity during a public event. The applause felt warm and honest. It filled the space without taking away from the seriousness of the day. King Charles III acknowledged the moment quietly. He did not wave or smile broadly. Instead, he offered a gentle nod, a simple sign of respect and understanding. This response matched the tone of the day perfectly. It showed gratitude without turning the focus away from remembrance. The applause continued for a short time, then slowly faded. People seemed to understand when to stop. Silence returned, but it was different now. It felt lighter, yet still respectful. The applause had added another layer of meaning to the ceremony. For many watching, this moment stood out strongly. It showed how deeply people had connected with what they saw. It showed that leadership could be recognized without words. The king had not spoken, yet the crowd responded with feeling. This reaction was not planned. That is what made it special. It came from the hearts of the people. They had felt something real and they responded naturally. In that moment, the distance between the crown and the public felt smaller. The ceremony continued toward its end, but the energy had shifted slightly. There was still respect and seriousness, but also a sense of shared understanding. People felt that they had witnessed something meaningful, something that would stay with them. King Charles III remained composed. He understood that the applause was not about him alone. It was about the moment, the memory, and the shared values of the nation. His calm reaction showed maturity and awareness. Around him, others maintained the respectful tone of the ceremony. No one allowed the moment to turn into something it was not meant to be. This balance kept the meaning strong and intact. People in the crowd began to reflect on what the applause truly meant. For some, it was a sign of hope. For others, it was reassurance. It showed that the new king could carry tradition forward while still connecting emotionally with the people. Those watching from home felt it too. The sound of applause coming through screens carried the same emotion. It felt honest and sincere. Many viewers felt moved by how natural the moment was. As the ceremony came closer to its conclusion, people remained attentive. No one seemed distracted or eager to leave. The event had held their focus without needing dramatic moments. It had done so through meaning and respect. The applause became one of the most remembered parts of the day. It was talked about quietly among the crowd afterward. People shared looks and small nods, as if acknowledging that they had all felt the same thing. King Charles III stood with quiet strength. He did not allow the applause to change his behavior or the tone of the ceremony. This showed that he understood his role clearly. He was there to serve, not to seek attention. The moment added depth to the story of the day. It showed that remembrance could also include connection and unity. It showed that respect could be expressed in different ways, as long as it came from a place of sincerity. As the ceremony ended, people slowly began to move, but the feeling stayed with them. The applause echoed in their minds, not as noise, but as meaning. This part of the story was powerful because it was unexpected. It kept the audience engaged by showing a real human response. It reminded everyone that history is shaped not only by planned moments, but also by spontaneous ones. The applause did not take away from remembrance. Instead, it added to it. It showed gratitude for leadership that honored the past with care and humility. King Charles III had not tried to create this moment. That is why it mattered. It came naturally, and it reflected the connection he had begun to build with the people. As the day moved forward, this moment became a symbol of trust, unity, and shared respect. It showed that the values honored on Remembrance Sunday were alive and deeply felt. This part of the story held attention because it was real and emotional. It did not rely on drama, but on honesty. It showed how simple actions could lead to meaningful reactions. The applause marked a turning point in the day. It reminded everyone that remembrance is not only about looking back, but also about standing together in the present. As people left the area, many carried this moment with them. They felt proud, thoughtful, and connected. The ceremony had done its job. It had brought people together in memory and respect. This moment of applause became one of quiet strength. It showed that respect could be expressed softly and still be powerful. It showed that unity could be felt without words. And above all, it showed that leadership, when shown with sincerity, could inspire a nation to respond from the heart. As the ceremony came to a close, people slowly began to move, but no one seemed in a hurry to leave. The feeling of the day stayed strong in the air. It was as if the moment needed time to settle into everyone's heart. The sounds of the city did not rush back all at once. Instead, calm returned gently, respecting what had just taken place. King Charles III remained composed as the final steps of the event were completed. His role for the day was coming to an end, but the meaning of what he had done would last much longer. He stood with quiet confidence, aware that this moment would be remembered by many, not because of grand words or dramatic action, but because of sincerity and respect. As he prepared to leave, the king took one last look toward the memorial. This look felt personal. It reflected thought, responsibility, and commitment. He understood that remembrance was not only about one ceremony each year. It was about carrying the values of respect, service, and unity into everyday life. The crowd slowly began to disperse. People spoke softly, if at all. Some walked alone, others with family members or friends. Many held their red flowers carefully as if they carried more meaning now. Faces showed calm reflection. Some people felt emotional, others peaceful, but almost everyone felt connected. Strangers exchanged quiet looks of understanding. No words were needed. They had shared something important together. This shared experience created a bond, even if only for a short time. It reminded them that remembrance brings people together across age, background, and belief. For many, the image of King Charles III standing in silence stayed in their minds. It was a powerful image because it felt real. It showed a leader who understood the weight of history and the responsibility of the present. It reassured people that tradition was in safe hands. Those watching from home felt the same way. The ceremony had reached far beyond the streets of London. Families watching together felt the meaning of the day. Some parents explained its importance to their children. Some older viewers reflected on memories of the past. The moment reached across generations. As the day continued, conversations began. People talked about the ceremony, about the applause, and about what it meant. Many agreed that it felt like a defining moment. It showed the beginning of a new chapter, guided by respect and understanding. King Charles III returned from the ceremony with the same quiet dignity he had shown throughout the day. There was no need for public statements or explanations. His actions had already spoken clearly. He had honored the past and stood with the people in remembrance. This day marked an important moment in his reign. It showed how he would approach his role during times that required sensitivity and care. He had shown that leadership could be gentle and strong at the same time. That balance mattered deeply to the nation. Remembrance Sunday had once again fulfilled its purpose. It had reminded people to pause, to remember, and to reflect. But this year felt different for many. It felt like a bridge between generations. It honored the past while quietly looking toward the future. The applause that followed the tribute stayed in people's thoughts. It was not loud, but it was meaningful. It showed that respect can be expressed in many ways. It showed that people felt heard and represented in that moment. As the evening approached, the day's events remained fresh in people's minds. News reports and quiet discussions replayed the key moments. But beyond the reports, it was the feeling that stayed strongest. A feeling of unity, respect, and shared memory. For King Charles III, this day helped define how the public saw him, not just as a king, but as a person who understood the importance of listening, honoring, and standing with his people. That understanding built trust. Remembrance is about more than looking back. It is about carrying lessons forward. The ceremony reminded people of the importance of peace, responsibility, and care for one another. These lessons felt especially important in a changing world. The king's tribute became part of this lesson. It showed that leadership does not always require speeches or bold actions. Sometimes it requires presence, silence, and respect. That message reached many hearts. As days passed, the memory of Remembrance Sunday remained strong. People carried it into their routines, their thoughts, and their conversations. It reminded them to be grateful and mindful. For younger generations, the ceremony offered an example. It showed them how history is honored and why it matters. It showed them that remembrance is not old or distant, but alive and meaningful. The nation moved forward, but it did not forget. The quiet strength of the day stayed with people. It reminded them that unity can be found in shared respect and understanding. King Charles III continued his duties, carrying the experience of that day with him. It shaped how people viewed his role and his approach. It showed that he was ready to carry tradition forward with care. This final part of the story is not about an ending, but about continuation. Remembrance does not end when the ceremony finishes. It lives on in actions, values, and memory. The day left behind a sense of calm purpose. It reminded people why coming together matters. It showed that even in silence, strong messages can be shared. As time moved on, Remembrance Sunday remained a reference point, a day when the nation paused together, a day when leadership, respect, and unity came together quietly. The story of that day became one of quiet strength. It did not rely on dramatic moments. It relied on sincerity and shared feeling, and in that simplicity, it found power. The memory of King Charles III standing in tribute became part of the nation's story. A story of continuity, respect, and hope for the future. This final chapter reminds us that remembrance is not just about honoring the past. It is about shaping the present and guiding the future with care. The ceremony ended, but its meaning continued to live on in the hearts of the people.